parents threw away my wife's bills. Because she's trying to trap you with pregnancy. We'd been married 3 years. But later, I discovered they just didn't want me to have children before my brother. So I threw them out of my house, literally, put their stuff on lawn, changed locks. They called police. But when they came, they discovered the hard reality. Hey, Reddit. My parents threw away my wife's prenatal vitamins and accused her of trying to trap me with a pregnancy. We'd been married 3 years. Turns out they just didn't want me having kids before my golden child brother. So I threw them out of my house, changed the locks, and when they called the cops, things got really interesting. Buckle up because this gets wild. I'm Jake, 32 years old, and I work as a senior systems analyst for a mid-sized tech company in Charlotte. Started in help desk support straight out of community college, grinding through certifications while everyone else was partying through 4-year degrees they'd never use. Worked my way up through sheer persistence and actually knowing my stuff. Now I pull in $95,000 a year plus bonuses, own my house outright, and have zero debt. Not bad for the family disappointment. My wife Sarah is a pediatric nurse at the Children's Hospital downtown. She works rotating shifts that would break most people, dealing with sick kids and terrified parents while somehow maintaining this incredible warmth and patience. We met 5 years ago at a friend's backyard cookout. She was wearing this ridiculous sun hat and arguing passionately about proper car seat installation with someone's cousin. I was hooked immediately. We got married after dating 2 years. Small ceremony, close friends, exactly what we wanted. My parents attended but spent most of the reception making passive-aggressive comments about how we were rushing things and should have waited until we were more established. We'd been living together for a year at that point. Both had stable careers and owned a house together. But apparently that wasn't established enough. My younger brother Derek is 29 and the undisputed golden child of our family. 3 years younger than me, but somehow he's been the favorite since birth. Mom literally has a shelf in the living room dedicated to his participation trophies and elementary school art projects. No pictures of me anywhere, except one graduation photo shoved in the back of a drawer. Derek went to a state university on my parents' dime, changed majors 4 times, took 6 years to graduate with a degree in communications, and now works in sales for a company that sells office furniture. Makes about $42,000 a year and still lives in the apartment my parents help subsidize. He's been dating his girlfriend Amanda for 8 months, and they fight constantly, break up every other week, but my parents treat her like she's already family. The favoritism has been obvious my entire life. When I needed textbooks for my IT certifications, Dad told me to get a loan. When Derek wanted spending money for spring break, they just handed him $800. I bought my first car with money I saved from working weekends at Best Buy. They bought Derek a used Honda for his 16th birthday. I could list examples for hours, but you get the picture. About 18 months ago, my parents lost their rental house when the landlord decided to sell. They'd been renting the same place for 12 years, never building equity, never saving for a down payment, just coasting along assuming everything would work out. When the sale went through, they suddenly had 60 days to find a new place in a market where rent had jumped 30%. They came to me asking for help, not Derek, despite him having a spare bedroom in his subsidized apartment. Me. Because I actually owned property and had the means to help. My house is a 3-bedroom ranch with a finished basement. Sarah and I were using 1 bedroom as an office, 1 as a guest room, and had plans to convert the 3rd into a nursery eventually. Against Sarah's better judgment, I agreed to let them stay in the guest room temporarily. 6 months maximum, I told them. Time to save up for first and last month's rent on a new place. They agreed immediately, promised they'd be model house guests, and moved in the following weekend. That was 18 months ago. They're still here. The problems started almost immediately. Mom rearranged our kitchen without asking because our system was inefficient. Dad started treating the living room like his personal man cave, sprawling on the couch with the TV blaring until midnight. They'd invite Derek over for dinner without telling us, then get offended when Sarah and I had already eaten or made other plans. Every conversation about them moving out got deflected. The market was too expensive. They needed more time to save. Dad's car needed repairs so they couldn't afford a deposit yet. Mom's hours got cut at her part-time retail job, so money was tight. Always another excuse, another delay, another reason why next month would be better. Sarah was a saint about it. She'd come home from 12-hour shifts dealing with desperately sick children and have to navigate my mom's passive-aggressive comments about how she kept the house or cooked dinner. Mom never said anything directly critical, just constant suggestions for improvement delivered with fake sweetness. Oh, honey, I noticed you don't meal prep on Sundays. That's really the key to efficient household management. Sarah, dear, I reorganized your bathroom cabinet. You had things in such an odd order. I threw out those leftovers that were taking up fridge space. They looked old, and you know food poisoning is no joke. The leftovers were from yesterday. They were my lunch for work. I tried talking to Dad about Mom's behavior. He waved it off as women being particular about their space, like it was totally normal for a guest in someone else's home to act like she owned the place. When I pushed back, he pulled the guilt card about how they'd raised me and sacrificed so much, and the least I could do was show some patience while they got back on their feet. Meanwhile, Sarah and I were trying to start a family. We'd been married 3 years, felt stable and ready, and had been actively trying for about 8 months. Nothing dramatic, just stopped using protection and let nature take its course. We'd agreed not to tell anyone until Sarah was actually pregnant, wanting to avoid the pressure and questions that would inevitably come. But having my parents in the house complicated everything. Our bedroom shared a wall with the guest room. We had to be quiet, careful about timing, aware that they might hear something. It was like being teenagers sneaking around, except in our own house that we owned. 3 months ago, Sarah went to her doctor for a regular checkup and mentioned we were trying to conceive. Her doctor recommended she start taking prenatal vitamins even before getting pregnant to build up essential nutrients like folic acid. Said it would give us the best chance for a healthy pregnancy when it happened. Sarah came home with 2 bottles of prenatal vitamins and put them in our bathroom cabinet. Started taking them every morning with breakfast. Didn't announce it, didn't make a big deal, just incorporated it into her routine. 2 weeks later, the bottles disappeared. Sarah noticed first when she went to take her morning vitamin, and the bottles weren't in the cabinet where she'd left them. She asked me if I'd moved them, which made no sense because why would I touch her vitamins? We searched the bathroom, checked if they'd fallen behind something, looked in other cabinets. Nothing. Maybe I put them somewhere else and forgot, Sarah said, though she looked puzzled. She was meticulous about her medication routine because of her nursing background. She bought replacement bottles that afternoon, put them in the exact same spot in our bathroom cabinet, made a mental note of the placement. 4 days later, those bottles disappeared too. This time, Sarah knew something was up. You don't misplace the same thing twice in the exact same way. She didn't say anything to me initially, just bought a third set of bottles and put them in our nightstand drawer instead of the bathroom cabinet. Hidden from casual view, those bottles stayed put. Then last Tuesday happened. Sarah had a rare day off and was home alone during the afternoon. My parents were both supposedly job hunting, which apparently meant Dad driving around applying to places in person, like it was 1987, and Mom browsing online listings at the public library, because our internet was too slow according to her. Sarah was doing laundry, gathering clothes from around the house, when she went into the guest room to grab my parents' bathroom towels for washing. That's when she found them. Both missing bottles of prenatal vitamins sitting in my mother's nightstand drawer. Not hidden particularly well, just there among Mom's reading glasses and hand lotion. Both bottles, one partially empty, one unopened. Sarah stood there staring at them, trying to make sense of why her prenatal vitamins would be in my mother's possession. She didn't confront anyone, didn't take the bottles back. Just quietly closed the drawer, finished the laundry, and waited for me to get home from work. When I walked through the door that evening, she was sitting at the kitchen table with this expression I'd never seen before. Not angry, not sad, just done. We need to talk, without your parents around. We went for a drive, parked at the empty lot behind the old grocery store where teenagers go to practice driving. Sarah told me everything. The disappearing vitamins, finding them in Mom's drawer, the whole situation. Why would she take them? I asked, genuinely confused. I don't know, but it's deliberate. She took them twice, hid them in her room. This wasn't an accident. When we got home, my parents were in the living room watching television. Dad barely looked up. Mom smiled that fake, warm smile she'd perfected. Oh, good. You're home. I was thinking we could order Italian for dinner. My treat. Her treat meant she'd order food and then somehow not have her wallet when it arrived, leaving me to pay. Happened every single time. Actually, Mom, we need to talk about something, I said, keeping my voice level. Of course, honey. What's on your mind? Sarah's prenatal vitamins, the ones that keep disappearing from our bathroom. Want to explain why they're in your nightstand? The smile froze on her face. Dad finally looked up from the TV. The silence stretched out for what felt like hours but was probably 10 seconds. I have no idea what you're talking about, Mom said, but her voice had lost its warmth. I found them today, Sarah said quietly. Both bottles. In your drawer. Well, I certainly didn't put them there. Maybe you left them somewhere and forgot. In your nightstand? Behind your reading glasses? Mom's expression shifted from fake confusion to something harder. This is ridiculous. Why would I want your vitamins? That's exactly what I'm asking, I said. Dad jumped in, using his reasonable tone. I'm sure there's a simple explanation. Your mother would never deliberately take something that wasn't hers. Then how did they get there? Sarah asked. More silence. Then Mom made a decision, and her whole demeanor changed. The fake sweetness evaporated, replaced by cold directness. Fine. I threw them away. Both times. And I'd do it again. Sarah actually flinched. You threw away my medication? They're not medication. They're prenatal vitamins, which means you're trying to get pregnant. And I'm not going to stand by and watch you trap my son. The words hung in the air like a bomb that hadn't exploded yet. Trap him? Sarah repeated. We've been married 3 years. Exactly. 3 years. You've had plenty of time. But suddenly now you're trying for a baby? Right when we're living here and dependent on you financially? That's not suspicious to you? I couldn't find words. My brain was trying to process what I was hearing. You think Sarah is trying to trap me with a pregnancy? I said slowly. My wife of 3 years? Who owns this house with me? Who makes more money than I do? You think she's trapping me? I think the timing is very convenient, Mom said coldly. We've been trying for months, Sarah said, her voice shaking now. Since before you even moved in. We just didn't announce it because it's private, or because you knew we'd see through your scheme. That's when something in my head clicked into place. This wasn't about Sarah. This wasn't about suspicion or protection or any of the surface-level garbage Mom was spouting. There was something else going on. Why do you care when we have kids? I asked. Mom blinked. What? Why do you care about the timing? Why does it matter to you when Sarah and I start our family? I'm just looking out for your best interests. No, there's something else. You've never cared about my best interests before. So, what's really going on? Dad tried to intervene. Son, you're overreacting. Tell me why you threw away my wife's vitamins. The real reason. Mom's face was flushed now. You want the real reason? Fine. Derek is planning to propose to Amanda next month. They want to start a family right away. You having a baby first would completely overshadow their wedding, their pregnancy, their whole timeline. Everything would become about you instead of giving your brother his moment. There it was. The truth. Stark and ugly. Let me get this straight, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. You sabotaged my wife's prenatal vitamins because you don't want us having a baby before Derek, even though we're married and he's not, even though we're financially stable and he's not, even though we own a home and he doesn't. You want us to put our family planning on hold so Derek can go first. He's younger, Mom said. Like that explained everything. He needs this. You've always had everything figured out. Let your brother have something for once. I didn't have anything figured out. I worked for everything I have while you handed him everything. And now you want me to delay starting my own family because it might make Derek feel bad? Is that really so much to ask? Dad said. Family supports family. Family supports family, I repeated. That's interesting coming from people who've been freeloading in my house for 18 months, rearranging my kitchen, criticizing my wife, and apparently committing petty theft to manipulate our reproductive timeline. Watch your tone, Dad said, standing up. No, I'm done watching my tone. I'm done making accommodations. I'm done subsidizing your lives while you treat me like garbage and worship Derek for existing. We don't worship Derek, Mom protested. You have a shrine to his middle school art projects in your living room. You subsidize his rent. You give him money whenever he asks. And now you're sabotaging my marriage to protect his feelings. If you cared about family, you'd understand, Mom said. That was the final straw. The thing that made everything suddenly crystal clear. I'd spent my entire life trying to earn their approval, their recognition, their love, working harder, achieving more, being more responsible. None of it mattered. It would never matter, because I wasn't Derek. Get out, I said. What? Mom looked genuinely shocked. Get out of my house, both of you. Tonight. You can't be serious, Dad said. Dead serious. You have 1 hour to pack your essentials. Everything else goes on the lawn. You can come back for it later with Derek's help, since he's such a priority. Jake, honey, you're being irrational, Mom tried. No, I'm being clear. You violated my wife's trust, you admitted to deliberate theft and sabotage, and you did it all to protect Derek's feelings at our expense. You're not guests anymore. You're not family. You're trespassers, and you have 1 hour. Where are we supposed to go? Dad demanded. Not my problem. Call Derek, sleep in his subsidized apartment. Figure it out like adults. The same way Sarah and I had to figure everything out without your help. If you do this, Don't expect us to come crawling back, Mom said, trying for threatening. Good. Don't. They stared at me like I'd grown a second head. I'd never stood up to them like this. Never set a boundary they couldn't bulldoze through. They were so used to me eventually backing down that they genuinely couldn't process this new reality. You'll regret this, Dad said. The only thing I regret is not doing it sooner. 59 minutes now. Sarah had been silent through the whole exchange, just watching. Now she stood up and walked to our bedroom without a word. When she came back, she was carrying 2 suitcases. These should be enough for essentials, she said, setting them in the hallway. Take what you need. Leave the keys. Mom looked at Sarah with pure venom. This is your doing. You poisoned him against his own family. No, Sarah said calmly. You did that yourself when you threw away my vitamins and admitted you did it to manipulate our family planning. Now pack. They didn't move for another 30 seconds. Just stood there, waiting for me to back down, to apologize, to restore the familiar dynamic where I accommodated and they took. When it became clear that wasn't happening, Dad finally moved toward the guest room. This is a mistake, he said. Probably. But it's my mistake to make. In my house. That I pay for. The next hour was tense and silent. I heard drawers opening and closing, muffled angry conversation between my parents. Sarah and I sat in the kitchen, not talking, just present. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand once. That was enough. When they emerged with their suitcases, I was holding a large black garbage bag. Inside were the prenatal vitamins I'd retrieved from Mom's nightstand, along with various other items of ours they'd appropriated over the months. Kitchen gadgets, nice towels, one of my hoodies Dad had claimed as his own. Your stolen property, I said, handing Mom the bag. Don't want you forgetting anything. She took it without looking at me. Dad handed over his house key, dropping it on the kitchen counter with exaggerated force. Mom followed suit. You're making a huge mistake, Dad said one final time. Then I'll learn from it, like I learned everything else. Without your help. They left. Walked out the front door into the evening carrying their suitcases and garbage bag, looking like refugees from their own bad decisions. I watched through the window as Dad loaded everything into their car. Mom standing with her arms crossed, both of them clearly arguing about something. When their taillights disappeared down the street, Sarah let out a long breath she'd apparently been holding. Are you okay? She asked. Ask me tomorrow. Right now, I'm just numb. We spent the next 2 hours in silence, processing what had happened. Around 9 o'clock, I got a text from Derek. Mom and Dad just showed up at my place. What the hell happened? I sent back a simple response. Ask them. 10 minutes later, he called. I didn't answer. He called again. I sent it to voicemail. Then came a barrage of texts. They said you threw them out over vitamins. That can't be the whole story. Mom is crying. Dad says you've lost your mind. Whatever Sarah told you, there's probably another side. Call me back. We need to talk about this. I blocked his number. Sarah watched me do it and nodded approval. You don't owe him an explanation, she said. I know. We went to bed early, neither of us really sleeping, just lying there processing the earthquake that had just rearranged our lives. Around midnight, I heard a car pull up outside, then pounding on the front door. Jake, open this door right now. Dad's voice, loud enough to wake the neighbors. I looked at Sarah. Ignore it. Call the police, she said. They're trespassing. More pounding. I know you're in there. We need to talk about this like adults. The irony of that statement while he was literally pounding on my door at midnight wasn't lost on either of us. I called the non-emergency police line and explained the situation calmly. My parents had been staying with us temporarily. I'd asked them to leave due to theft and property violations. They'd departed voluntarily hours ago, and now they were back pounding on my door at midnight, refusing to leave. We'll send an officer, the dispatcher said. The pounding continued intermittently for another 10 minutes. I heard Mom's voice now too, shrill and demanding. Then Derek's voice joined them. The whole family reunion on my front lawn at midnight. When the police cruiser pulled up, lights off but clearly official, the pounding stopped. I watched through the window as a young officer got out and approached my parents. Couldn't hear the conversation, but I saw Dad gesticulating wildly, Mom dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, Derek standing with his arms crossed, looking aggrieved. The officer walked up to my door. I opened it. Evening, sir. I'm Officer Patterson. We got a call about a disturbance? Yes, I asked my parents to leave earlier today. They did. Now they're back pounding on my door at midnight. Do they have keys to the property? No, they returned them when they left. And you're the sole owner of the residence? Joint owner with my wife. We both want them to leave. He nodded. Can you explain what led to asking them to leave? I gave him the short version. They'd been staying temporarily. That arrangement had run its course. And when I asked them to leave, they became hostile. I left out the specific details about the vitamins because it sounded insane even to me. They're claiming you threw them out without warning and refused to let them collect their belongings. Their belongings are welcome to collect tomorrow, during daylight hours, with prior coordination. They took their essentials when they left earlier. Everything else can be arranged properly. The officer processed this, then looked past me at Sarah standing in the hallway. Ma'am, do you agree with your husband's account? Completely. We gave them an hour to pack essentials. They left voluntarily. Now they're back pounding on our door in the middle of the night. He nodded again and walked back to my parents. The conversation lasted about 5 minutes. I saw Dad's posture get more aggressive, Mom's crying intensify, Derek trying to play mediator. Then the officer said something sharp enough that all three of them went quiet. When he came back to the door, his expression was neutral but professional. Sir, I need to inform you that your father made some accusations about you that required me to investigate further. My stomach dropped. What kind of accusations? He claims you've been financially abusing them, stealing their money, and that they were living here under duress. He says they have documents proving the house is partially theirs because they helped with the down payment. That's completely false. I bought this house with my wife 3 years ago, 2 years before they even moved in. I have all the documentation. He also says there are belongings inside the house worth several $1,000s that you're refusing to return. They're welcome to collect their belongings. Not at midnight. During reasonable hours. He's demanding access to the house right now to verify their property is undamaged. Sarah made a disgusted sound behind me. Officer Patterson held up a hand. I'm just telling you what was said. Now, do you have documentation of sole ownership? I pulled up the deed on my phone, showing the property was purchased 3 years ago in my and Sarah's names only, with mortgage documents showing we'd put 20% down from our own savings. Also showed bank statements proving I'd been making all the mortgage payments from my account. And the belongings they claim are worth thousands? Mainly furniture from their old rental. It's all in my garage. They're welcome to take it any time during daylight hours with advance notice. The officer reviewed everything on my phone, taking his time. Then he walked back to my parents one more time. This conversation was shorter and more one-sided. I watched the officer speak firmly, while Dad tried to interrupt several times. Finally, Dad threw his hands up in frustration and stormed back to his car. Mom and Derek followed. Officer Patterson returned to my door. Sir, I've informed them they need to leave the property immediately. I've also made it clear that their claims about ownership and theft don't hold up based on the documentation you've provided. If they return tonight, call us immediately and we'll charge them with trespassing. Thank you, officer. One more thing. Your father mentioned filing charges against you for elder abuse and illegal eviction. I need to give you a heads up that if he does that, you'll need to respond with your own documentation. I have everything documented. Bank statements, text messages, the original agreement about them staying temporarily. Good. Keep all of that organized. And sir, he paused. I see situations like this more than you'd think. Family housing arrangements that go wrong. My advice? Don't engage with them directly anymore. All communication in writing. Keep records of everything. If they try to come back, don't open the door. Just call us. After he left, Sarah and I stood in the quiet house. The guest room door was open, showing the stripped bed and empty surfaces. The kitchen counter was clear of Dad's scattered newspapers. Mom's craft supplies were gone from the dining room table. It's really over, Sarah said. Not quite. They'll try again. Probably. But at least now it's documented. The police know they're lying about ownership. That's something. We went back to bed. This time I actually slept. The deep, exhausted sleep of someone who's been carrying a weight for so long they forgot what it felt like to put it down. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 42 text messages. Derek, my aunt, 2 cousins I barely spoke to, even my grandmother who I hadn't heard from in 3 years. The family phone tree had activated overnight. The messages were variations on a theme. How could I throw my elderly parents out on the street? They'd sacrificed everything for me. I was selfish and cruel. Derek was willing to mediate if I'd just be reasonable. Grandmother was ashamed of how I'd turned out. I blocked all of them except my aunt, who'd actually been decent to me over the years. Sent her a simple message explaining that my parents had admitted to deliberately sabotaging Sarah's prenatal vitamins because they wanted Derek to have kids first, and I wasn't interested in maintaining relationships with people who do something like that. Her response came back surprisingly fast. Are you serious? They actually admitted that? Word for word. Said Derek's timeline was more important than ours. That's insane. I'm sorry, Jake. You did the right thing. At least someone in the family had a working moral compass. Around noon, Derek showed up at my door. I watched him through the window, debating whether to answer. Finally decided it needed to happen eventually. We need to talk, he said when I opened the door. Not hello, not how are you. Just demands. No, we don't. They're my parents too. You can't just kick them out because of some argument. It wasn't an argument. Mom admitted to stealing Sarah's medication to manipulate our family planning because she didn't want us having a baby before you. That's not an argument. That's deliberate sabotage. He blinked. Clearly that detail hadn't made it into the version of events he'd heard. That's not. I mean, she wouldn't. She did. She said it directly. Your timeline was more important than our marriage. Look, Mom gets protective sometimes, but, Derek, she stole medication from my wife. Twice. To protect your feelings. And I'm supposed to be okay with that? I didn't ask her to do that. But you're here defending her instead of being appalled by what she did. That tells me everything I need to know. He stood there, clearly struggling with something. Finally, they don't have anywhere else to go. That's not my problem anymore. They're family. So is Sarah. And when I had to choose between enabling people who've treated me like garbage my entire life and protecting my wife, I chose my wife. You should be grateful I didn't press charges for theft. Charges? You're threatening to press charges against your own mother? She stole prescription supplements. That's a crime. I'm being generous by just asking them to leave. You're being vindictive. No, Derek. I'm being done. There's a difference. He tried several more angles, appealing to childhood memories, warning me I'd regret this, suggesting I was having some kind of mental break. None of it landed because none of it addressed the actual issue. Finally, he switched tactics. What if I promised to talk to them? Make sure they understand boundaries? You could let them come back. We'd all work together on new rules. Derek, the problem isn't lack of rules. The problem is fundamental disrespect. They don't see me as an equal adult. They see me as a resource to be used and managed. And they see you as the precious baby who needs to be protected and prioritized. That dynamic isn't fixable with better rules. So, you're just giving up on the family? They gave up on me a long time ago. I'm just finally accepting it. He left angry, but not before mentioning that Mom and Dad were staying at his apartment, and it was extremely cramped, and could I at least let them collect the rest of their things soon so he could have his space back. The fact that Derek's main concern was his own convenience rather than the dysfunction that had caused all this was perfect. Absolutely perfect. Sarah and I spent the weekend cleaning the house, scrubbed the guest room, rearranged the kitchen back to our preferred setup, reclaimed the living room as our own space. It felt like exercising a presence that had been slowly suffocating us. Monday morning, I sent a formal email to my parents, outlining when they could collect the remainder of their belongings. I gave them 3 options for scheduled times over the next week, all during daylight hours, all requiring they confirm attendance 24 hours in advance. Made it clear that if they showed up unannounced or caused any disturbance, I'd donate everything to charity. Dad responded with a long email about my disrespect, my ingratitude, and my moral failings. Didn't address the logistics at all, just 3 paragraphs of grievances. Mom sent her own email, much shorter. I'm your mother. Start acting like a son. I sent one final response to both of them. Schedule a pickup time from the list provided, or your belongings will be donated to Goodwill on Friday. This is your only notification. They picked Thursday afternoon. I arranged to be at work during the time window, leaving Sarah to supervise if she wanted, or letting them collect everything without supervision if she preferred. She chose to be there with our neighbor Tom as backup, just to make sure nothing went sideways. According to Sarah, they arrived in a moving truck with Derek and Amanda, loaded everything quickly and professionally, didn't try to come inside beyond the garage, didn't make a scene. Mom apparently cried the entire time while Dad maintained rigid silence. Derek tried to small talk with Sarah, who shut it down with one-word answers. When they left, Sarah changed the garage code and checked every window lock in the house. How do you feel? I asked her that night. Lighter, like we can finally breathe in our own home. We christened the reclaimed guest room that night. Not frantically or quietly or careful about timing. Just normally, like adults in their own house. It felt revolutionary. 3 weeks later, Sarah's period was late. She took a test. Positive. We sat in our bathroom, staring at the little plus sign, both of us crying. Not because of the pregnancy itself, though that was overwhelming enough, but because we'd done it. We'd protected our marriage and our family from people who'd tried to control something that was nobody's business but ours. Sarah's prenatal vitamins were exactly where she'd left them, in our bathroom cabinet, unmolested. She took one that morning like always, and I watched her do it with this fierce, protective pride. We told Sarah's parents first. They cried happy tears, asked appropriate questions about due dates and doctor appointments, offered to help however we needed. Normal, healthy family responses. We didn't tell my parents. Didn't tell Derek. Didn't announce it on social media where the extended family would see. Just kept it private and ours. 2 months into the pregnancy, Derek texted from a number I hadn't blocked yet. He'd proposed to Amanda. They were getting married in 6 months. He wanted me to be his best man because despite everything, I was his brother. I didn't respond. He texted again a week later. Mom really wanted me there. Dad did too, even if he wouldn't say it. They were willing to apologize if that's what I needed to hear. I responded this time. I don't need an apology. I need you to understand why what they did was wrong. Since that's apparently impossible, we have nothing to discuss. It was just vitamins. You're holding a grudge over vitamins? No. I'm maintaining a boundary after they admitted to sabotaging my marriage to prioritize your feelings. If you can't understand the difference, that's a you problem. He didn't respond to that. But 2 days later, I got a voicemail from Mom, crying, saying she just wanted her son back, that she'd made a mistake but she'd been trying to protect the family balance. The family balance. Like we were a mobile that might tip over if I had a baby before Derek. I deleted the voicemail without finishing it. Sarah and I went to every prenatal appointment together, watched the ultrasounds, heard the heartbeat, picked out names, built our nursery in what used to be the guest room, painting it a soft yellow that worked for any gender. Every step felt like reclaiming something that had almost been stolen from us. At 20 weeks, we found out we were having a girl. We picked the name Emma, Sarah's grandmother's name. Nobody from my side of the family. That felt right. Derek got married in a ceremony we didn't attend. I saw pictures later through my aunt. It looked nice. Mom was wearing a dress that probably cost more than they could afford. Dad looked uncomfortable in a tuxedo. Derek and Amanda looked happy in that generic wedding photo way that might or might not survive 6 months. My aunt sent me a picture of the reception. Mom and Dad were sitting at the family table with empty seats next to them. She'd included a note. Those were supposed to be your seats. Your mom cried about your absence during the toasts. I didn't feel bad. Felt nothing at all, actually. They weren't my family anymore in any way that mattered. Emma was born on a Tuesday in November. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, healthy and screaming. Sarah was a champion through 18 hours of labor. I held my daughter for the first time and felt something shift fundamentally in my chest. This was family. This was what it was supposed to feel like. Sarah's parents were at the hospital within hours, bringing flowers and tears and age-appropriate advice. They held Emma with the practiced ease of people who actually liked babies, who saw them as tiny people rather than props or competition. We sent no announcements to my side of the family, didn't post on social media, just existed in our bubble of new parent exhaustion and overwhelming love. But somehow, they found out anyway. Family phone tree strikes again. Mom showed up at the hospital the next day, got past the front desk by claiming to be the grandmother and saying we'd called her to come. By the time a nurse came to check on us, Mom was in our room, standing over Emma's bassinet with tears streaming down her face. "She's beautiful," Mom whispered. "My granddaughter." Sarah's voice was ice. "Get out. I just want to meet her. To tell you I'm sorry. I made a terrible mistake." "You made a choice," I said. "And we made ours. Now leave before I call security. Please. I'm your mother. She's my granddaughter. Don't keep me from her. You kept yourself from her. When you decided Derek's feelings mattered more than my marriage. When you stole my wife's medication. When you tried to manipulate the timeline of our family planning. You made these choices. Now live with them. I'll change. I'll respect boundaries. Just please." Sarah pressed the call button. A nurse appeared almost instantly, took one look at the situation, and firmly escorted Mom from the room. We heard her crying in the hallway, Dad's voice trying to calm her down. Then security arrived, and they were both removed from the floor. The hospital flagged their names in the system. No access to our room, no information given out, treated as potential threats to patient safety. When we left 2 days later, security escorted us to our car to make sure my parents weren't waiting in the parking lot. They sent gifts to our house. A massive flower arrangement. A stuffed elephant bigger than Emma. A card with a check for $5,000 and a note about wanting to help with baby expenses. I returned everything. Sent the flowers to a nursing home with a note that they were a donation. Gave the elephant to the children's hospital. Sent the check back with return to sender marked on the envelope. Every boundary we set, they tried to push. Every wall we built, they tried to climb. But we held firm. And eventually, they stopped trying. Derek and Amanda announced their own pregnancy 4 months after Emma was born. The family celebrated like it was the second coming. My aunt kept me updated with screenshots of the family chat losing their minds with excitement. I felt nothing. Not resentment. Not satisfaction that they'd gotten their precious grandchild from the golden child. Just nothing. Emma is 6 months old now. She smiles at everything, loves her feet, and has Sarah's eyes. We take her to the park on weekends. Sarah's parents babysit once a week so we can have date nights. We're exhausted and happy, and building something real. My parents sent another letter last week. Mom's handwriting, Dad's signature too. Long explanation of how they've been seeing a therapist, working on their issues, understanding how they hurt me. They want a chance to be part of Emma's life, to prove they've changed. I read it once and then used it to start a fire in our fire pit. Watched it burn while Emma babbled in her bouncer next to me. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.